YouTube stream is fully up and running when we hear myself echoing back. And YouTube should be right about now. Stream is fully up and running when we hear myself echoing back. So we are live on YouTube, and after I mute that, check and see if anyone's already watching the stream on YouTube. Nope, not yet. And no one has put anything into the chat comments on YouTube. So, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. We haven't even called to order. All right. Welcome everybody who's with us right now and watching the recording later. I'm Stefan Wunsch. I'm the co-chair of the MBTA's Rider Oversight Committee. I'm in Lynn right now. And Wig, want to just introduce yourself quickly? More for an audio check than anything.
I'm Wig Zamor. I'm back at my home desk in Somerville.
Thank you. And Len?
I did most of my homework, looked at most of the things I was supposed to look at most of the
Excellent.
meetings.
Excellent. I really appreciate that. And Len?
I'm Leonard Diggins. I'm coming to you from Somerville too, and I'm co-chair of the Capital Investment Finance Subcommittee.
Thank you very much. Again, hopefully we'll have a couple of other members coming in, but there's no need to wait. Again, I'll check YouTube. No comments. Anyone want to make a public comment or present or comment on anything under the auspices of public comments for the meeting?
Yeah, I'll make one comment.
Please.
I think both of you probably look at more documents than I do, but although I went to 10 years of MPO meetings and quite a few others, including regional and including quarterly environmental meetings that Christine Kirby ran. And as you guys know, I go to a fair number of national and international meetings for environmental health. I was struck, I guess this has been true for a long time, but the legacy major maintenance issues are so large that it's hard to see, national politics aside at the moment, it's hard to see how we're ever going to be in a position to have any kind of visionary capital projects that could significantly introduce new possibilities for connections that aren't really great right now. I always think of two things. One is the growing canyon between Longwood and Kendall, the two of the top research sites in the United States, and they're not very well linked by our transit system. We have a lot of young people working there, bringing up young families. This is a really big disconnect. And Grand Junction could easily connect those if you were to grab, I'm going on a bit. Sorry about that, but I just want to lay it down again. The other big disconnect is, I think, Lower Mystic to Lynn, and notwithstanding the excellence of Stefan and his unwavering goodwill and good efforts in Lynn and in that geography. But I've always thought that the Phase 3 urban ring, as previously proposed, wasn't quite right. That they should have focused on Grand Junction as a electrified rail, and that it would be possible to grab a Green Line branch to Longwood because there's duplication beyond Longwood. So you could keep those the, those branches fanning out past Longwood and turn that into a blue line, and then cut through Longwood down to Harvard Alston, and effectively go back on Grand Junction all the way back around to Chelsea and East Boston. That would give you a blue ring that would connect everything, including the left out EJ population that's lower Mystic to Lynn, not in Somerville, because we're very grateful for what we have now. But that would connect lower Mystic to Lynn, and it would also connect LMA and Kendall. So I don't know, the lack of large vision and the lack of possibility to execute large vision, I don't mind waiting a couple years or one presidential administration in DC, but this is a decade after decade issue here. Thank you.
Thank you, Wig. And glad you're on board, Craig. Just more so to make sure we can hear you okay. Do you want to just introduce yourself very quickly?
Hi, Craig Laskowski, public member. Happy to be here.
Great. Thank you very much. Sounds good. Well, we're basically right on time. So unless anyone else wants to add anything under the public comments, I'm going to turn it over. Well, not turn it over, but so much as introduce and bring in our discussions with Alex Hollowell, MBTA's Director of Transit Priority. Alex, I can't thank you enough for joining us. This is really a tremendous opportunity, and I'll just speak for myself. I'm really grateful that you can join us. A little bit of background. I first met Alex in person at the Lynn event. Oh, I'm sorry. Lynn, you had a hand up. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. That was inadvertent. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, no, that's fine. No worries. I first talked with Alex at the Linway corridor planning project, where Miles also was by chance, and I want to make sure that we I don't want to say focus on other things beyond the bus lane enforcement, but there's so much more than that Alex and her team manage and plan and oversee, that I want to make sure we were able to give Alex a chance to talk about all the other things, because I've been seeing you and Rachel have been doing just an astounding job of going before the board several times, going before the MBTA advisory board. I don't know how many other events and meetings that we don't know about. So really, I'm hoping, Alex, that this is just going to be whatever you'd like to share with us, questions and answers from the other committee members, and how the conversation evolves is really, I'd like it just to be kind of a little bit freewheeling, if you want if you want. But over to you. Feel free to introduce yourself, ask us more about us if you want. I mean, however
Yeah,
you'd
well,
like to
thank you
start
guys
off.
for having me. I will never show up at any sort of public meeting without a slide deck to accompany me, because I like to try to at least attempt to stay on message, but
Okay.
I'm also happy to do like a very long Q&A.
Let me know if you want me to stop sharing what I have, so you can put up yours if you want, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, why don't I jump in? It's actually a pretty
Perfect.
long slide deck, but I think it's got some stuff that would tee up a broader conversation. Let me figure out if I never use Zoom, so bear with me.
No problem.
We greatly appreciate it when guests are nice enough to bring materials, because it's always easier to react to something on screen than it is to kind of make up questions on the fly.
Good point. Yeah.
All right. Can you guys see that?
Yes, just started, and we got it. Yep, I see a slide deck. Better Bus Project Transit Priority Program. Yep,
There
and
we
now
go.
it's full screen. Looks great.
All right. So, I wanted to take a few moments to just sort of like go through the the founding origins of the Transit Priority Program at the MBTA. I should also say, yes, hi, Alex Howell, Director of Transit Priority here at the T. I have a little over a decade of experience working in various roles in bus operations and capital planning. And I joined the T in 2022. And so I have been really fortunate to grow with the Priority Program, which was launched in 2018 in its current form. But the first slide I wanted to sort of flash up is something that I've been, if you've seen some of my other presentations, you've probably seen this as well. But something that I think gets a reaction in a lot of the presentations I do is we in Bus World at the T are maybe not at the center of every conversation. We're really like a rail-oriented organization, and Lord knows the subway system has needed a lot of attention recently. But I do really want to take a moment and talk about who rides the bus and just how many people that is. And so 40% of the T's ridership on a daily basis are bus riders. And when we talk about commitments to equity, social justice, and broader mobility in Greater Boston, um, the bus riders, even among the MBTA's very diverse ridership, are disproportionately low income, minority, and have no access to a vehicle. And so when we talk about who benefits from the work our team does, this is who we're talking about. This is who we think about every day and who we're trying to center our work on. Bus network redesign, as I'm sure you know, but bus network redesign was an effort that took several years to come to fruition. It was a really popular thing to do, actually, in the years leading up to the pandemic. There were a number of large transit organizations that were looking at their bus systems. San Francisco, where I was working before joining the T, had also gone through this process. There was a lot of bus service that sort of organically had grown and shifted, but there'd never really been in the MBTA's current incarnation any sort of bus service review. And it meant that there was a lot of new connections, development or shifts in sort of population centers or business centers that were just really not accounted for or well served by the T's bus service. And then there was a lot of just shifts in population in terms of who was riding the bus and where we were allocating resources. And so the bus network redesign was really aimed at thinking about how to simplify the bus system, get rid of the gazillion of variants that can make the bus super confusing. 1 second. Time is it? No, okay. Sorry, someone just rang the doorbell and I just wanted to make sure it wasn't my husband who'd locked himself out. Okay.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot of people out canvassing for the election right now, and so I'm largely ignoring my doorbell.
Yep, I understand. I'm with you on that one.
So the bus network redesign is doing a whole host of different things to improve service. It does involve eliminating some service, simplifying some service, but it does also include, critically, unlike many of the other nationwide peer programs, included adding 25% more service. And the first phase of bus network redesign is really targeting north of the city. And was a 60% service increase. So it was pretty much all good. It was a very exciting program to be part of, and I'll talk through some of the benefits of that in a second. During the planning process for bus network redesign, there's a lot of data crunching, and one of the analyses that came out of that was the data underlying our transit priority vision. And so what that is looking at where we have the highest rider delay in the system, and helping us really clarify where would have a disproportionate benefit if we were to add some sort of bus protection, transit priority improvements. And so really the vision targets only 10% of our service area, but benefits 80% of our riders. One really critical thing, and this is sort of where my team works in this space, is that this plan does not prescribe any specific approach. All it does is identify problems, so that we have clarity on where the issues exist. But it is really up to the work of my team and of our partners at the municipal level, to come up with what could actually resolve those problems. And so that's really the work my team does. So I did want to just talk a little bit. It's not often, I think, in a public transit career that you get to talk about massive service increases. And so this is something I think we're all just really trying to take a victory lap on right now. It's something we've all known for a really long time, which is when you put resources on the road, when you increase bus service frequencies, people are really happy and people use the system in new and different ways. And so phase one has been an unmitigated success. There are 30,000 people who are benefiting from the better bus service. We already have 2,000 new riders just on the 104, which is a new service that connects Malden through Everett and Chelsea into the airport. And so this is a hugely, hugely successful new connection. That was a very exciting new thing to do. I think a lot of service is that sort of hub and spoke concept. That's how a lot of our mobility in Greater Boston and in many cities works, which is downtown is really where you have to go before you can go anywhere else. And so introducing some of these new service connections is part of the vision for B&R. Bus Network Redesign. And it's connecting neighborhoods that historically would have had to take a very, very circuitous trip in and around or connect to multiple infrequent routes in order to make those connections. And so the 104 we know has really served a lot of people going to and from the airport, either for leisure, but also a huge number of airport workers are using this service. So I think the highest ridership period is at like the very first two trips of the day. And so this is something where I think as we think about what we learn from Bus Network Redesign and how people are using our service, is going to challenge us to consider what our hours of operation really are. We've heard loud and clear from riders on this service that they would benefit from even earlier service so that they can make those really early shifts at the airport. There's a lot of structural challenges related to that, but I do think it's something, again, coming from San Francisco, which is a 24-hour transit service system. It's something that I think is really critical when you think about transit service as a lifeline and as real mobility. People need mobility in the dead of night, and running, some amount of service can be really important for that. And I think that's something, I personally hope we work to grow to. It will involve like a whole new level of resources, but you have to keep pushing, right? So, anyways, phase one has been phenomenal. From the transit priority perspective, it's really hard to build bus lanes super fast, not because they're technically challenging, but because they're politically fraught. I do think that is sort of the theme of every talk I give is like what we do is not technically challenging. There are certain components of certain designs or certain areas that offer a little bit more of a difficulty when we come to designs, but really all of the challenges that we face are purely political. And whether there is the community or political support to make some pretty profound changes to roadways and to really like viscerally be reallocating the space away from drivers nearly universally into to other users. And so we were hugely thankful to the staff and the city leadership in Everett and Chelsea who understood our vision for the 104 service, understood the benefits that were going to accrue there to their residents and to visitors and workers in their area, and helped us deliver a bus lane in about, I think it was like 16 months from planning to implementation, which is really warp speed. And so we've got a bidirectional bus lane on 2nd Street in Everett in Chelsea, and it's been so impactful that when the service launched, we actually had to adjust the schedules because The service planners did not expect the buses to operate quite as quickly between stops as they can because of how effective this lane is. And we we had to add in some different time to adjust the frequency. So I know phase one got a lot of attention, but we've moved away from phases and we're doing basically cyclical launches of new service and service realignments as we're able to get either the headcount required for the operators or the physical improvements. A lot of this requires upgrades in bus stops, accessibility improvements, things like that. And so as those things come online, we're launching new and different service. And so we also launched service this summer and this fall that has also been hugely impactful, if maybe a little bit less of a big fanfare than we had with phase one. So I did really want to underscore this has been really exciting for the team and something that we're probably going to be coming behind some of these service changes in the future and working to get some transit priority in place where it's required. So transit priority program. This is sort of one of those like, yeah, duh. Slow traffic means delayed buses, right? The real challenge for making bus service attractive is that it has to contend with all of the worst parts of the driving experience, right? And as a service operator, when we're looking at our constrained resources, even this year, the MBTA is going to need to use 1 out of every 3 new operators hired just to keep schedules the same against growing traffic. And so when we talk about what traffic means, it's not just that it's unpleasant for riders, stressful for operators, um, something that drives people away from wanting to use bus service. It's certainly all of those things, but it's not just that. It's also a massive, massive sink in resources. We are constantly having to tinker with service in order to keep schedules functioning against the ever increasing pressures of traffic. And so that's again where my team comes in, is thinking about how do we build space for buses in order to sort of keep the investment levels from having to spiral sort of constantly upwards. And so this is an old chart. I didn't have time to update it before today, but it gives you a sense. The pandemic period was really a period of explosion for this program in this region. Really, we went from a pretty moderate number of bus lanes to like a lot in a lot of places. And I think it's provided us a lot of opportunity to show folks how different treatments can work and helped us build our network of supporters. I think, you can show people any amount of examples from other cities or other places, but everybody feels more comfortable when they know it works in local context. And the more we're able to build inside of Greater Boston, the more support we have for the next project, right? And so this is the Transit Priority Network today. Those are all of the green lines, are all of the bus lanes, and all of the blue lines, I don't know if you can really tell from the screen resolution, but are the high frequency bus network.
Can you go back one slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what is the light green?
MassDOT?
Oh, I see. So
on a MassDOT roadway.
How do the cities map to this graph?
So Boston is pink. Is the big pink at the bottom. And then Arlington must be red below that, and I think it's just not showing up. But then there's Brookline, Cambridge, Chelsea's yellow, MassDOT's a big green, Everett is the dark green, Malden.
But where is MassDOT?
We have a very long bus on shoulder project on a MassDOT roadway, which represents a huge amount of this, but also like Tobin Bridge is an example of a MassDOT roadway. So these are places, we tag them as MassDOT, not as the city that they are in, because the roadway owner that had to give us authorization for the alteration was MassDOT.
Yeah, so I just asked because But part of this, the top and the bottom, you can tell which cities are most affected, but that big green space, you can't really tell.
Mhm.
So it's like
Right.
it's a beautiful graph, but it's kind of like two different paradigms within one graph.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Wait, you're thinking through the lens of which areas had benefited the most, and you can't get that without knowing the
Yeah,
underlying
going where they are.
how the big
Yeah,
giant green block
right.
I
splits
do
out.
have, I believe, well, we'll get to it.
No, it's
Anyways,
okay. It's okay. I was just curious what was going on, and you explained that well. Thank you.
yeah,
Well, for what it's worth, I like that graph the way it is because for me, that's highlighting the partnerships with the municipalities, sort of counting MassDOT as sort of a municipality in a way. But yeah, I agree. Wig's point is a good one. But I don't want to dissuade you from using that same graph in the future, Alex, because I think
I
that
think
that is
depending on
powerful.
the,
It's very
yeah,
powerful.
depending on the audience, I think
Right,
we try to think about what the message is in different places.
right. I
Um,
that's exactly what I was thinking. For this
yeah,
committee, it's you explained it perfectly, and everybody here is going to understand your explanation because it was excellent. But if you're a woman with some bags and you're just trying to get from one place to another, and you saw that
you
graph,
don't care. Yeah,
I think they would be flummoxed by the
yeah.
green. That's why I asked it.
Um, So our program is really comprised, I think, of like two big categories of work. So one is quick builds, which is what's represented here in some of these pictures. These are relatively recent projects that we put down. Quick builds are can sometimes be a misnomer. Sometimes they take a very long time to actually build, but what they really mean is low in civil infrastructure. And so there's usually very little concrete work. There's very little like typically it's mostly paint that we're talking about and really like just a reallocation of existing right of way. Sometimes we'll do some minor work to signals or do some accessibility upgrades as required to make ramps compliant. Um, but in the most part, it's paint. Honestly, you can see this guy in Brookline tossing down the Ruby Lake glass bead aggregate, which is actually the material that we use. It's not paint at all, but um, this is, I would say, the lion's share of the work we do. If you look at the staff hours that really go into the program, each of these projects is very, very labor intensive. Whether it's, a couple hundred feet or a couple of miles, it's usually the same amount of hours that you're meeting to sort of like plan, to manage all of the engagement and the outreach. And so we try to be really flexible around being opportunistic for when there's a moment or an interest by a roadway owner to be able to jump on some of this work. And so um, yeah, this is a quick build, and then actually I'll come back to this chart in a second. And these are the major corridor projects that we currently have underway. These are a whole other level. Quick build projects are usually somewhere between like 250,000 to maybe $1 million in terms of construction costs. Um, these are 37, I think, is the cheapest, up to over $100 million um, in total infrastructure rebuilds. So a lot of these were like completely changing the roadway allocation. We're certainly doing mill and overlay, if not like full excavation or reconstructing sidewalks. We're often replacing wholesale signal infrastructure, lighting, redoing crossing distances. These projects take years of planning, engineering work to get to the point where we've got the permitting, where we've got the designs, where we've got the support and the funding. Each of these projects has been funded in some way by federal funding. And so I do want to say that's going to be a really interesting dynamic in the future is this is sort of how we've been planning on funding a lot of these major corridor programs. We do have like years worth of work sort of that we're grinding through right now. So I think we'll be okay for a bit. But it is something where it's challenging to find a single entity that's willing to put $50 million down on a single project in a single location when it's for bus. And, I don't know really what that means in terms of our collective values, but it is a challenge. And we've been really lucky. The MPO has been really supportive of some of our work. And we've gotten pretty creative with putting together sort of funding coalitions for projects where we're sharing with municipalities, with the MPO, with the MBTA, CIP, to come up with funding plans for these things. But it will be a big shift if the shift away from the federal government funding this type of work persists. However, I don't want to get too bogged down in that. Columbus Ave Phase 2 is at 75% design. We're hoping to break ground next year. That will serve 55,000 riders, so that's as many as the Blue Line. On over a mile, it'll save them about 5 minutes of travel time if you're traveling the full length of the corridor during peak hours. Let's see, the next one will probably be debatable, but probably be Blue Hill. Blue Hill is 3 miles long, so that's going to save, I think, up to 11 minutes of travel time if you travel the full corridor. Most of the service on that corridor sort of comes in and out, but I believe the 28 will travel the full length, 28, 22, I can't remember. That's another one where when we were getting into planning alongside City of Boston, we were looking at sort of who's on the bus, right? Who's riding here. During peak hours, there are more people on buses on Blue Hill Ave than there are in cars. And yet they have zero dedicated infrastructure. And so we view this as a real commitment to sort of the volume, intensity, and importance of the bus system for that neighborhood. That's been an incredible partnership with the City of Boston, with really strong leadership from the mayor. And we're really, really excited to see that project move forward. That is still waiting for a grant from this federal government. So like TBD on how all of that goes, but the program still exists and we hope to get funded. Lower Broadway and Everett is one that we were awarded a raise grant last, I guess, what year is it? It's 2025. Yeah, in 2024. And this project is really exciting because it's the first sort of step towards building out the Silver Line extension. So this is between Sullivan Station and Sweetser Circle, connecting Boston up into Everett, along that major development corridor that's sort of getting underway now. This will serve the existing 109 service, which got a huge frequency promotion during the first phase of bus network redesign. So this is the lower third, this right of way of what the Silver Line extension is expected to be, the routing. So we would still need the connection between Chelsea Station, where it currently terminates, up through Everett Center and then down to Sweetser Circle. But that segment can be constructed after this one is up and running, and it will exist and be ready to accept the Silver Line whenever we're able to advance that. And I know there's a lot of work happening between MassDOT and the MBTA to try to get support to really get that project in motion. So I'm really hopeful that'll be on my slide deck in the not too distant future as another big project that we're excited to see get going. And then the Linway, which I know Stefan is very familiar with. The Linway project has been sort of lingering for a while, and we're finally getting concept rolling. There was a whole bunch of outreach this fall, and we're hoping to come back with a design not long after New Year. That project would build a center running bus lane, potentially. I think that's still sort of part of the question. We're mulling from the outreach, but the original proposal that went in for the grant was to build a center running bus lane on the Linway, and to sort of, it would be an interesting new approach to how we're thinking about building out transit priority infrastructure. A lot of what we do is come behind the problem. The Linway, I think, is a really visionary idea in that there's a huge amount of development that is sort of envisioned along the Linway, and there's a real fundamental understanding that that roadway cannot absorb the volume of traffic that would be generated from that development. And so let's get a super high quality transit facility in place so that as the demand arrives, there's already something existing. We know, in transportation planning that when people relocate, that's when they reassess their transportation habits, and it's a really great time to capture folks as transit riders. And so having super high quality transit along the corridors that are experiencing development is a sort of like twofer in terms of our ability to grow ridership as an organization and to really like shift folks away from cars as as a state. So I think I will pause there because that's a lot. I do have a whole thing on camera enforcement if we want to get into it, but I feel like I've given a lot of presentations around that, and I'm happy, again, totally happy to talk more about that. It's like one of the most exciting things I've had the opportunity to work on in my career. But you're right, I have been doing a lot of rounds on that. So,
Well, I've got really only two questions that I want to eke in, but I'll let the other guys go first. So jump right in, Craig, Wig, Len.
Well,
Don't hesitate.
I assume that rush hour is kind of where your worries are. I'm not sure if that's true, but um, this is a short anecdote from a few weeks ago. I was trying to get to a public meeting in Swampscott at the high school, and I left early. The middle lanes are helpful to me, to be honest with you, because there's no one turning, right? So
yeah.
if there's 3 lanes and I'm going a ways, that's what I try to do. But I'm impressed by the growing politeness of some of the drivers, I have to say. But anyway, sorry for this short anecdote, but it's just a real life story. I got to Swampscott High School, and there was a handwritten note that the meeting had been moved to an elementary school, but there was no address. And there were 2 people working at the high school who were janitors that didn't live in Swampscott, so they had no clue where the elementary school was. And then I then I went to a Starbucks, got out my laptop, figured out where the new elementary school was, drove to it, walked through 2 stories of the building, and I could not find the meeting, I have to say. And apparently it took place in a remote room on some obscure floor. But there was no traffic coming back. So, but anyway, I'm pretty familiar with this trip. In the last weeks, I have to go to Lynn and Swampscott and Marblehead for business, sometimes from Somerville. So it's interesting to me that you're working on that corridor, and it's super important. I'm always impressed when I swing into the Walmart in Lynn, how many people are there, and also I'm impressed by the fabric downtown in Lynn, the blocks and everything is so terrific, and I super appreciate your work there. I was there before the garage collapsed and got shut down, and anyway.
Is there anything specific that you wanted to ask?
Well, I just wonder about the tension between the roadway and the transit. The both mostly the private vehicles, but also some of the other vehicles on the roadway and the transit changes. That's got to be a juggle for you every time you do this kind of thing. I would guess, but you tell me.
Yeah, I mean, it gets to, I think, the fundamental tension in the work I do, which is that we've spent more than a generation, several generations, really pouring resources into car travel, and we now have a very car-centric, even in, as friendly of a sort of walking and transit city as Boston can be. We still have a really car-oriented transportation network. And I think the unfortunate reality is that when you do shift resources from one user to another, it's disruptive, right? It is obviously disruptive. I think the question is sort of what is the future that we want to build? And how do we chart a path in that direction? And I think the transit priority vision is a helpful beginning to that because it's talking about existing transit riders that are already being subjected to disproportionate delay. It's where we already have really high levels of service and ridership. Um, and it's a place that we can confidently say these lanes aren't going to go unused, right? I think it is again one of those things that where even in those locations it can be a real trust fall to reallocate that space away from drivers. And I think when we're looking at designs and when we're looking at where we're going and what we need to do in a particular location, we never lose sight of that. I mean, I drive. I live in Cambridge in part because I don't like driving. But I do drive, and I have a deep respect for people who, really do need to use a car for one reason or another. But I also think it's my job to center the needs of transit riders and the people that need to use a bus and
Right.
who right now have a much worse experience than anyone in a car and to start building the infrastructure we need to make buses a far more viable option for folks who might be interested one day in using the bus. Maybe not for everything, but for a lot of things, but really need the service to be better than it presently is. And I think, yeah, there's really no better metaphor than like a trust fall for that. I think, we know what works, we know what it takes. And I think we try to conduct ourselves as diligently as we can in how we think about planning and design, but it really does come down to sort of a rejiggering of the hierarchy of needs and
Uh,
to really like shift priority away from one user to another. And I think that's a challenging thing.
I'll just say one thing. I didn't drive my Prius for 5 years, and it's almost 20 years old now. In some ways, to be honest, I found it easier to plan my transit trips. So, I mean, that's a plus, because you never know what's going to happen when you're in a car. And I enjoyed that quite a bit, even though, part of it was in the pandemic and part of it wasn't. But I want to give way to other people here. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Wig. Len, please. Oh, you're still muted, Len.
Sorry about that. Thanks.
That's okay.
Yeah, thanks for a great presentation. I've seen it a couple of times in a couple of different situations. But actually, maybe I did have to step away this time, and I may have missed it in others. Have you been able to see any kind of increase in ridership to TSP?
Yeah, so yes, but so let me give you the spiel. We are starting to finally be able to track that in a better way. One of the big challenges of the fact that um the bus lanes were largely implemented during 2021 and 2022
Yeah,
is that there was a pandemic that
right,
had an absolutely catastrophic impact on transit ridership. And so, what is your baseline of
right,
comparison for either service levels or ridership has been a perpetual challenge. And I
right,
think really from 2024 to 2025, I feel like we've finally started to get to a stabilization point where the numbers are not totally wacky. And so we're finally being able to look year over year in a way that feels really valid. And it's been really, again, gratifying to see in BNR, we've been tracking that as we do the service increases. We are seeing riders come to the service. I think the challenge we've got with some of these bus lanes is like, I don't really know. It's really hard to tell what happened before and after a particular bus lane went in. And that moment of time is kind of lost to us in terms of that initial like influx of riders. What we have seen though is that a huge number of the routes that have high quality transit priority on them have had a stronger and more persistent ridership. So like even early in the pandemic, we're really like had come roaring back in terms of ridership. A lot of them have surpassed their pre-pandemic ridership numbers, and this is at a time when the T is I think at about 70% of our pre-pandemic ridership, and so um, seeing something come back to 100% is in and of itself like pretty spectacular. And I think that's a little bit of a function where we're trying to put the priority improvements where we have riders and where we know we have persistent ridership. But I think it also shows that we're supporting those riders well in that. But it's definitely something moving forward with new projects that we implement. I'm really eager to track more closely now that I feel like we were kind of at a stabilization point with the ridership and with the service levels. So the year-over-year comparisons would be more valid.
I've always liked buses. I mean, I think what's good about buses too is that you can, I mean, they're more granular in terms of the stops. And
Mhm.
so you can be more easily, say this is exactly where I want to go on a bus, and it may not be as fast. To a certain extent as a train. But especially if there are mobility issues. You can pretty much get within. I mean, you know, 5 minutes. Of where you want to be. With the bus. And so sometimes when folks talk about doing bus stop consolidation, I'm like, well, yeah, I see why you want to do that in terms of speed, but in terms of real convenience, which is more than just in extra for some people. It's like, and it's really like good to have that level of convenience. And as I said, mobility issues, but also when the weather's really bad, it's like if it's raining really heavily, I'm going to opt for the bus, which may be 5 minutes away as opposed to walking, 15 minutes to a train stop. So I just want to advocate for keeping more bus stops. Not that that's your bailiwick, but I'm just talking
And it's
in
part of
general.
transit priority. It
Yeah,
is
yeah,
definitely something we think about. It's funny you say that. So I've got a 2 and a 5-year-old, and
yeah,
so we ride a lot of buses because their little legs don't love long walks. I live pretty close to the red line, but it's long enough that um I don't think much about it. But schlepping a 2-year-old plus backpacks plus
yeah,
a scooter plus a porta toilet or whatever can be like a real thing. And so
yeah,
we ride a lot of buses, very short distances. And my bus actually, our stop got relocated and is now like 3 times as far away from our home as it used to be. It's one of those things where it's like I know why we did it. I support why we did it, but it's really annoying for me personally
yeah, yeah.
that it's now 3 blocks away instead of one.
Yeah, no, 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 no. The same happened to me, but it was like twice as far away. But but this was a 77. But twice as far away went from like half a block to a block. So
Yeah,
so
yeah,
so.
it's
But,
still.
but yeah, but when the rain is heavy, it's fine. But it's like, but I saw it moving it too. And so yeah, I was like, yeah, okay, well, good to eat your own cooking. The last thing I'll say is this is for pedestrians too. Is like, I've noticed that sometimes pedestrians will go at a crosswalk when there's a bus coming, because I think they know that the buses will stop as opposed to the other car. And generally when I'm doing crosswalks, I'm trying to like maximize throughput, and also being on the bus. It's like I never get into a crosswalk when a bus is coming. It's like
There's a
let the
difference
bus
between a
go.
professional driver and the yahoos behind normal cars.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
still though, but when they do that though, it's like, hey, do you realize that you're slowing down like 30 or 40 people on the bus,
yeah.
versus you getting across the street. But that's just kind of like the kind of a PSA for anyone who may be listening. If you're a pedestrian, and a
Yeah.
bus is coming, you let the bus go. But anyways, that's
Yeah,
it. Thanks.
Craig, before I ask a question, do you want to jump in?
Uh, um, sure. Alex probably doesn't want me to, but
Yeah, go for it.
that's all right. Of this group, I am more skeptical on bus lanes than the most. So
Mhm.
I'm not going to argue with you, because I can tell that you're very passionate about this, and I love when I can tell somebody's in the right job because you're doing something you love and you truly believe in. You're doing the right job, so that's great. And I'm not going to convince you that it's wrong or otherwise. I guess what I would rather use my time for is to talk through um, where I see challenges with it. Overall, I'm supportive of it. I understand the need and I understand the ridership community that it's serving, who is underserved in so many ways. Um, Transportation just being one of those ways.
Mhm.
So I guess I I think the tough part is the reality is we're not a brand new city. This would be an easy thing if we were expanding in the suburbs of Houston and we had tons of real estate and there's room for everybody. We could put a bus lane in, we could put a walking path in, we could put in we could put in a bike path. The reality is when you have confined space, you have to pick winners and losers. And we can use language like we're shifting, but the reality is it's a shift. Somebody's winning and somebody's losing in that shift. And so it's natural that people are going to be um um it's natural that there's going to be a tension there because we are prioritizing one thing over the other. But that's you have to do, right? It's the hand we've been dealt in an old city. So let me get off my high horse and let me get to a couple questions or things we can have a substantial conversation about. First, like part of the reason why I think I'm jaded on bus lanes a little bit is I worked downtown for a long time. I would walk or take the bus um or take public transit to work. And I worked right in Chinatown. And one of my first exposures to bus lanes was Essex Street.
Yeah.
And I saw with great fanfare the street painted red.
Oh yeah.
Spent a whole lot of money, and then over time, people parked in it, and it got dirty, and it got covered in snow, and it fizzled. And so so I'm very much scarred by that, and I feel like we're just rolling out lots more things that are going to get covered in dirt, and the fancy red paint's going to chip off, and we're going to go back to how it was because it's inertia is always back on the side of the car. So. Help me understand how this is going to be different than this time.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things in there. So I will say Greater Boston was built largely at a time of streetcars, and that we made the active decision as a region to rip out streetcars and make space for cars. So Blue Hill actually is one place where we are essentially restoring that corridor to its original design of high quality transit. So it's not always
I do want to we will deep dive on Blue Hill
yeah.
next because it's my second point. But go ahead.
But Essex Street. So comically, the one of my perpetual examples is the right near Tufts Medical in downtown Crossing. When you pull across that intersection, it's like a glorified loading zone, right? With trucks and people and Uber Eats and I don't even know what else. Everybody's using that bus lane as a loading zone. It is still one of our more effective bus lanes. It actually still saves like a pretty significant amount of time. We were running an analysis. I was trying to come up with an example of a good location that would benefit from camera enforcement. And I was like, oh, that'd be a great one just to talk about what is the sort of missing improvements that we think are foregone because of all of the people that abuse that specific location. And the numbers actually weren't nearly as bad as I thought they were going to be. I will say Brighton Ave in Allston is just as bad as you would expect it to look with the data. But both of those lanes are ones where if we had any level of enforcement, let alone consistent enforcement of the existing roadway design, and drivers obeyed the rules of the road, which is a perpetual challenge across, I think, like sort of society. Those lanes would be working just fine. And the exciting thing about launching the automated camera enforcement is that for the first time, we finally have the ability to enforce the designs that we are implementing. Up until this point with these projects, I will be honest, we've been moving away from a lot of these cheaper paint-based projects because they just are so challenging for us to enforce that in many locations where we have persistent demands for curb access, so those would be places where you've got like a lot of restaurants or things where people are going to want to pop in and out of a car or have a lot of loading demands that are not accounted for. those are places where we really were not pursuing transit priority, even though it's really needed. Because it's just like, why would I waste time and energy building something that is just going to turn into a glorified parking space? And I think I'm really eager to see how the camera enforcement changes that thinking, because the alternative to that is we spend a lot more time and energy engineering solutions that are, heavier engineered redesigns of roadways that are more expensive. They take much longer to plan. And really, there's only a handful of locations where I think we could build the support to do that level of work. And so it's going to always blunt our ability to grow the program and to make buses function better. I will say one of the reasons I am so passionate about this work and that I do really believe in it so deeply is because I lived and worked in San Francisco for the first sort of 10 years of my career. They have a massive transit priority network in their city. And yes, the roadway context is totally different from many of the places that we're delivering service. But I rode high frequency, high quality, fully protected transit every day to and from work. And I know what it can do. And I know how it can change people's thinking and experience of riding a bus. And it's something that I really feel like we can't bring it everywhere. You're right. There are plenty of locations where the designs are just not going to work for the geography that we have, but there's an enormous number of places where it will and it can. And so like those are the things that I think, particularly like Blue Hill, Tremont Columbus Phase 2 are two designs that I think totally account for the needs of the roadway users, are going to make those roadways so much better for people walking. And make them so much more vibrant in terms of the experience and how intense those roadways are today because of all of the traffic, and are also going to have these huge transit priority improvements as well. My kids scream in the other room, so I have maybe like 6-7 more minutes. I can stick
no
around.
problem. I'll toss out the two questions that I had, and then you can decide which one you want to answer.
Excellent.
Or go really fast or both, but you can just pick one or the other. As a technology person and a self-identified geek, I have to ask about the technology that's involved and whether you have future ideas about all new different types of things that we haven't even heard about yet. You might not be able to tell us that that's okay. Or is there a primary focus on the more, like for now, for the foreseeable future, sort of the traditional TSP interfacing with intersections, signals, etc. But that's the first thing, and again, you can choose. The other one is sort of more general look back. If I put on my oversight hat for this committee, well, if I understand it right, the whole process of getting the regulations going through the legislature, etc., that I could be wrong, but I think that's unprecedented. So I'm just curious. I mean, obviously, you should be very proud, you and your whole team. Phenomenal effort and success in getting that done. But it must have become, there must have been some costs, must have been a lot of stress and strain. I'm just curious, like if you look back, like as oversight hat wearing, um, are there areas where in hindsight you wish you could have waved a magic wand and say, okay, if I knew then what I know now, this would have been smoother? Or are there areas where, like an organization like us, could talk to the legislature and say, hey, this really could be better in these ways, because that's kind of thing that we have done in the past. So again, your choice. Comment on either of those.
Yeah, I think I could probably tackle both in a few minutes. So
Okay,
the
cool,
first,
thanks.
in terms of technology, again, I think like the real fundamental core challenge of our work is a political one. There's a lot of different approaches we can take from designs. There's new and different technologies that can, I think, move the needle at the edges. But the real core value is getting space on the roadway. And there's really nothing in technology that does that problem for us. I wish I could create like a new dimension and we could just go through that. But so I would say that's really, technology is something that we're always keeping an eye on, but it's not something that I think is going to solve like the most fundamental challenges that we face. Separately, when it comes to the legislation, yeah, that was an effort led by our policy team. Rachel Morris in particular has really been spearheading that for a long time. I think when you work in this field, you kind of get used to a lot of the things you want to do are things that will take like an entire career's worth to drag over the finish line when it comes to changing policy and changing law. I do think that policy win was accomplished in part because of the coalitions that they were able to build. One of the real core messages of camera enforcement has been around safety, which is one of the reasons the associated bill that passed at the same time as automated camera enforcement for public transit vehicles was camera enforcement for school buses. Right. And I think people feel the safety issues associated with reckless driving around school buses in a much more visceral way than they feel them about other roadway users. And I do think that understanding that issue in a new and different light sort of helped crack that nut from a policy perspective. I'll be honest, I don't know what ultimately caused that bill to make it over the finish line. I don't know that any of us really do. It was a number of years of working, and it would get close and just sort of not really make it over the finish line. But it was the persistence of our accessibility community that were consistent in their message that this is a fundamentally an accessibility problem when buses can't reach the curb because people are blocking bus stops. We've had a number of partners who care about transit justice, a number of folks who care about environmental implications of car usage. There's a whole host of folks that I think have been persistent on this. And I think that's really what moved the needle. And I think that tends to be the story with this stuff is it's never one thing, it's sort of all the things together that eventually get things across the finish line.
Thank you for that. For whatever time you've got left, I'll defer to the other guys for the rest of the time that you have.
I think she needs to go
I
now.
have one simple
I think
question.
she needs to go now. So we should let her go now.
Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, thank you, Alex.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. This is really fun.
Yeah.
I've never done quite such a freewheeling chat, so this is an interesting format, but I appreciate it.
Thank you. And
Thank
again,
you.
congratulations, and not just to you, but to your whole team, everybody involved. It's really impressive, and people will be grateful for decades, I am confident.
They'll be grateful until they get a ticket in the mail. But
Very good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
Great work.
you. Have a good one.
See you later. Oh, phenomenal.
So the Massachusetts legislature is an interesting thing, so I can appreciate that she doesn't know what really, got it to pass,
Yeah.
I could ask around and find out like what was, who, because essentially anything that passes, has to have the Senate and the House leadership on board,
Right.
That's the only way it gets to a final vote, In general, if it gets to a final vote, it's generally going to pass. It's really just getting it, to the point where it gets a final vote, because a lot of things get passed out of first committee in the first reading, but then, a lot of times they get sent to study, which means they're not going anywhere. So it's like you need to get it from that first reading, pass it to a committee, and then to Ways and Means, and then it has to survive the conference committee, and that's usually where things kind of fall off, because it goes into the conference committee, and then it comes out of the conference committee, and then it's up or down vote, and so it's kind of really hard to get inside the conference committee. It's intentionally kind of what's the word for it? Enclosed. That's not still the right word, but anyways, I'm going on and on about how the Mass legislature works. I'm not complaining about it, I'm just explaining it and why it can be such a mystery as to what happens in the end.
I'm grumpy today, so I'm still skeptical. I'm still going to be the skeptic on the bus lanes. I think the 2 points we would get a little more conversation on. One is there's been attempts at enforcing for years, right? This isn't a new concept of enforcement. it's we're failing to enforce the existing road traffic laws. Like I think there's a lack of acknowledgement of kind of there's theory versus reality, right? And if anybody goes down Blue Hill Ave on a busy day, there are cars that throw their flashers on in the right traffic lane, not a bus lane, it's just a right traffic lane. It's just if you take that one lane away and make it a dedicated bus lane, I'm worried about flashers in the middle of the road. Like it's we can say we're going to enforce it, but we're not enforcing the existing traffic laws to begin with. Never mind enforcing new traffic laws. So I'm just I don't know how we get away from, and I brought this up in this committee before. I don't know how we get away from you can do tickets all you want, but I don't know how you're going to get away from the Amazon drivers, the UPS drivers, the Uber Eats drivers, the DoorDash drivers. They're not going. We can do tickets, right? I don't think we're going to ticket our way out of those things going away.
But I think what you're saying, Craig, is that they're not ticketing. I mean, I think you're saying they're not enforcing because they really aren't ticketing. I mean,
right,
so,
but why is it different this time? Like,
because
I guess I'm making 2 points. Why,
because the cameras will automate the ticketing process.
Thank you.
Everything.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be coverage down every roadway, right? Like it's for everything we've covered on that. It was about we did.
No,
We had a
it
presentation.
is. It's going to be every bus stop. That's
Yep.
the whole idea of the technology and the effectiveness.
No. Bus stops, not the entire lane. It's not. So if there's 3 miles of thoroughfare between Mattapan Square and Franklin Park, you're not covering that entire 3 miles to say every car that's stopped in there is going to get a ticket.
No,
You're covering.
that is exactly it. It's at the stops and stopped in the lanes. The only thing that, if I understand it right, and I've read it a couple times, the
Okay.
only thing that got backed out was the enforcement of driving in a bus lane, and I believe that was pulled out more because the technology doesn't give a reliable indication of that. In other words,
Yeah.
if a bus comes up on somebody and they're stopped in a bus lane, it's easily identifiable by the current technology. Stopped in a bus stop, same thing. So the third prong of that got dropped, which was driving in a bus lane, but that's not completely off the table. I believe the legislation allows for that enforcement. It's just not part of the current plan because of the technology. But oh yeah, I've got it right in front of me. Oh, hold on. I'm already sharing. Hang on. I keep forgetting. I'm already sharing, so I'm going to pull this in instead of sharing another window. And where's the one that actually says, yeah, parking or standing in a bus lane, and oh, right, and bus stop. Yeah, bus lane, bus stops.
Got it.
Yep. But you'll note that the bus stop violation, even the first time, is $100, whereas you have to be parked in the bus lane a third time in 180 days.
Yeah,
And
I guess what I would go back to in I won't argue the passenger vehicle one. I will argue the commercial vehicle one, right? Like
Yep.
I'll go back to my point on winners and losers, right? We are potentially, depending on how it's executed, going to make it more difficult for delivery drivers to do their jobs. And that may be fine. That may be the right thing to do, right? It's not necessarily a question of right. I think it's just more. I think it's more of a acknowledgement that this isn't a win-win-win for everybody, right? It's a zero-sum game.
Yes.
That when if you are carving out space for one thing and going to penalize anybody who tries to skirt around the edges of that prioritization, with a fairly extensive fine, then you are picking winners and losers. And I'm less sympathetic to the car users, right? Because they should be taking public transit. I'm more sympathetic to commercial drivers who have a job to do, and they need to stock the businesses on those routes with the things that get sold in those things. And those restaurants want to sell to Uber Eats because they want people to buy their product. So I appreciate providing a better service for the rider. I just sometimes feel like there's not an acknowledgement of the costs to other hardworking groups that will be potentially negatively impacted by a rollout like this.
Fair enough.
Well, I mean, just that, if I could comment on the economics of it, Craig, increased costs, gets passed on to the consumer, and so the businesses can always pass on whatever increase in prices they have to bear because of, these added costs, and so now the question is, is it of value to the consumer? Now I think a counter argument to that is that the prices go up, high enough, then they start losing business because of, my favorite
Yeah,
word,
and in particular
Craig,
the areas where we're not talking about people getting a bus lane in front of Morton's Steakhouse here. We're talking about in front of mom and pop shops that are on Blue Hill Ave that are struggling to make it as is. So we're
well,
I don't disagree with the economics of it. I just
yeah.
think I think there is it'll be interesting. You could argue to me that, hey, theoretically, you're gonna get more foot traffic because people are getting more excited to take the bus to get to you because the bus rides faster. But I think in some cases that may be true, but I think in other cases there's going to be some losers in it because um they're going to have challenges in selling their product.
Yeah, well, look, I think also you can dedicate some loading spaces, and some pickup drop-off spaces, but still there are going to be people who are going to go, well, that spot there is empty, and I want to use that spot because it's just more convenient for me, or the other spots are full and I don't want to wait. But yeah, it's
So
good.
I'll move us off that because
Sure.
it's just giving time here, and I know
Okay.
I don't want to stay on all the way to
All
7.
right. But
The
a
the
valid point. Valid point. Yeah.
the point the other point I would make is, and this actually goes back to Wig's opening comments, is we're not thinking big enough. That this is a painting existing lanes red is a lack of ambition, right? If we really wanted to solve Blue Hill Ave, we would put a subway down Blue Hill Ave. Like we would bury something underground, or we would put a monorail on top of it, or whatever way you want to implement it. We would do something that we would truly solve the problem, right? There are ways to solve that problem of transit priority that would get riders somewhere faster and would not take away space from the existing roads. They're just expensive. And so we've chosen the cheaper option, but the cheaper option has an impact to certain groups.
Yeah. Well, what we need to do then, is either we run for office ourselves with things like that as a platform, or support people who run for office with things like that as a platform. And part of that platform says, like, we're going to have to pay more taxes, folks, or fees, whatever you call it, so that we can get, the more services, so we can do that, but we just have to do that. We have to support people that do that.
It's
Are,
the
are you
cost
talking
benefits.
the federal level, Len?
All
Oh,
levels,
all levels. Yeah.
all levels. Yeah,
Yep.
starting from
Yeah.
very local too.
No,
So
no, I'm
but we
just
have to
kidding
support people,
because
or we run ourselves. So because we are the problem and we are the solution. Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, well, our federal level is a moonshot right now. I mean, it's not even part of the game. One thing, if I can just throw it in, one thing I think about too, as opposed to what my opening statement was, is to what extent are we taking into account the variety of people? We've got, look, this is a pretty sharp group that does homework and thinks about things. But there's a lot of variety of people that need to get around, including people that have a lot less physical or mental resources, and also visitors. And so there's I mean, I feel like I'm in Craig's world now because I'm thinking of the issues that you're going to bump into. But I travel, and I'm not really super quick at. I mean, I look at what the transport is, and I don't take cabs or Ubers or anything. I either walk or I take transit, no matter what new city I'm in. But when I think of people who are less able to think or walk or whatever, um, then then I have to recognize that that's part of the challenge for the people who are trying to design these things. What's the bell curve they're designing for?
Well, I think you're saying like what percentage of people, I mean, are they trying to cover, in the services they provide? And yeah, I don't know what the number is. I think when I think about the way that we select projects, for an MPO, you just try to maximize the usability of the system. You realize that some people are going to be left off. But if you can make the system more inclusive, you do, and there is a point where the costs become prohibitive, and that kind of draws the line for you. And then for the people who can't access it, you try to figure out some other way, for them to access. But the goal is always to, make the entire network accessible by everyone. For a reasonable price in a reasonable amount of time. And I just want to say to your comment at the beginning, Greg. As you know, the T is doing its PMT. I was trying to see when they were going to have some meetings, but that will be the time to start encouraging the T to think big. If you have specific projects, I think it'd be good, to lay those out.
And since you
No,
mentioned that,
I mean, but
go
I
ahead.
think there's just been uh, I don't disagree with any of that, right? I can't tell you, I can't disagree. Like advocating for what you believe in whether that's running or supporting or funding or whatever you do I can't disagree with that, right? I guess all I can say is I feel like there's somewhere along the line we lost our line on it going back to, I mean, and I guess I should be thankful that the green light extension happens, right? That's a step in the right, that's a huge step in the right direction. Um, um, but I feel like going back to the kind of short side decisions around the um, Silver Line out to um, the seaport area, we kind of began the era of these kind of short-sighted decisions. Like, we could do a subway in this brand new area that we're expecting to have millions and millions of people living in, but not millions of people, but a vibrant 21st century neighborhood. We'll put a bus on the ground. Like, and then it led to the Silver Line. Like, and then now we're not calling them Silver Lines, but it's more Silver Lines. It's not that they don't provide value. Are we missing a trick?
So
You're on mute.
The cost of that was extraordinary compared to the value of that bus system. I mean, there was just a disconnect between the massive cost of that and what they ended up with because of the compromise.
and what was the compromise? I'm just asking. I'm not
Well,
critiquing.
well, ending up with a bus and you paid for a tunnel that you could have put light rail in
I got you.
or subway.
I,
You could have
I
hooked up with Broadway in South Boston.
right. That that's the answer. That's the answer. That given but The other thing I'd be interested to talk to her more about would be just I was surprised how much the jury was still out on, or the method to her didn't seem to matter, whether it was center lane or side lane or anything. It didn't like it seemed like, yeah, we can do anything. It doesn't really matter. It's politics. It's not the what or the how.
Hmm,
I
I didn't
I'm
get
surprised.
that vibe. Are you
I
sure that's what you heard? I don't
I
think she
guess what
said
I
it
was
didn't
saying was
matter.
I was a little surprised that, well, let me frame it a different way. I I'd be curious to learn more because I don't know. Is is there is there enough history of these things that we know the right way and wrong way to implement them? To say, okay, let's move, fine. You convinced Craig that we need more of them. What's the right way versus the wrong way to implement them in what are the trades, what are the pros and cons of the different approaches?
Yeah. Well, I heard her say that there is a lack of data from the beginning of the pandemic when the bus lanes were first being rolled out
No,
because or
no,
sorry,
no,
not
but
lack of data, a lack of data that is able to be reconciled with today's
sure.
ridership numbers, right? But I
But
thought she said that it is a learning curve and there is a certain amount of holding off on the routes that are less certain to be benefiting a large number of people.
no,
I
I did hear that. I guess that what I would be feel what would make me feel better is to say, hey, we've looked at these other five cities that have done this. When they did it this way, it
Yeah,
failed. When we did it this way, it was
right.
successful. It,
yeah,
it, it, it is, and so, for an example, I was a, I'm a, I think we're going center lane both on Blue Hill Ave and on a Linway, right? That's the current method going forward.
it seems certain for Blue Hill Ave. It's not been called certain for the Linway, but it's certainly, from everything that I've seen and heard, looks like the best bet. Bang for
Yeah,
the buck, least amount of hurt, benefit to all parties. The classic, the a good compromise is when everybody is equally disappointed or something like that.
yeah. I guess what's counterintuitive to me on that, right, is how many people are the idea of having more what is already a very busy roadway, when still will be a busy roadway, even with the dedicated bus lane, more people using the crosswalks to get to the middle. Like that, like it sounds like we're introducing risk where we don't need risk there. And potentially then your solution is, oh, don't worry, we'll do longer crosswalk times. Okay, well then now you're cutting into
Yeah,
your now you're making your trips even longer. Like there's a there, like
right.
it, it,
Except bear in mind that um, if I'm not mistaken, in much of Blue Hill Ave right now, there isn't any center reservation where people can wait for a crosswalk cycle on the other side. In other words, if I could be wrong about this, but I think the majority of it is you've got to go all the way from one side all the way to the other. Whereas
it depends where you are on it.
Okay, yeah, but if it's a
It
center
varies a
running
little bit.
if it's a center running protected bus lane, like are some of the theories for the Linway, you know that you're absolutely going to be able to have a protected spot in the middle, and that allows for better, more flexible timing of the lights. Plus, don't forget,
Yeah.
we're talking about all new signaling systems, and those would all be interconnected and actually up to 21st century standards where I don't have any faith that there's any interconnect. I'll just speak for the Linway because it's like right down the street from me, literally. I have zero uh, evidence from firsthand or anecdotal evidence even that any of the signals on the Linway are interconnected in any way right now. So I
And
think the bottom line is the redo um, is going to make things safer and um, increase the throughput. That's what I'm going to say. I don't want to say faster, but I think it's going to increase the net overall throughput of people when you account for number of people across all the modes, I think the throughput, Blue Hill Ave and Linway will be hugely improved.
Well, to correct your first point, I mean, about any research, I mean, as to what's the best way to implement these things, that's an interesting question. I'll do some research on it. I'll do research on my own, I mean, and then I'll pull up one of my favorite, AI, models, I mean, ask it to, and see what we get. So that's my homework, our next meeting, which is going to be the only meeting in November. The second Wednesday of the month. So that's a good question.
I also think
go ahead.
There's a couple of things here. One is, these are existing contexts in which really great solutions aren't always easily come by. So, I think that's an issue. The other thing I want to say, completely different from all of this information discussion, is the character of the people who we have as guests here is really stunning. And I don't think we should forget that. Just the average character is terrific. And I, even if they don't have the very best solution each time, in our opinions, I mean, I just can't fault them on character and their efforts.
Alex and our whole team deserve high praise. Oh, sorry, Len, go ahead.
I don't think they mind a critique either. I mean, like any good, scientist, or policymaker, really encourages people, to, let them know, how they really feel about things, and when they disagree, to voice that disagreement, because if there's some value in disagreement, they'll learn from that,
I agree with that. I just wanted to tip my hat to their character, but I agree with that.
Yeah, no, I agree too. No,
I agree. I just got to throw back really quick to Craig, what you were saying about the crosswalk times and all the other things. I don't want to say that you're wrong, and it's absolutely valid concerns. And the more that I run it through my head, I realize I need to get more information about how just pedestrian crosswalks impact flow and throughput. So I just got to say thank you for bringing that specific thing up and all the other comments, because absolutely valid questions. Yeah, valid points.
Well, and like I said, I appreciate where this is coming from, right? This is a way to improve the bus situation. I'm just trying to make sure we look at it from multiple angles, and we don't rush to congratulate ourselves and say, like, this is the most great thing since read. It's a very good thing, but it does come with some trade-offs that should be openly acknowledged, as opposed to kind of like hidden off to pretending that they don't exist.
Yep.
You mean I have to stop patting myself in the back? Oh my goodness! Wow, that's feeling so good.
As a side note, specifically about the Linway project, another factor of it is to try to reduce the number of accidents. I believe
the Linway one's almost a unique animal, because it's a whole roadway redo, right? It is
that's true.
And to be fair, that's a cheating one because you have space. It's
going to be tight. It is going to be tight. Yeah. And if the design ends up being going from 3 lanes to 2 with a center running protected dedicated bus lane, it's going to be tough to see how well entering and exiting vehicles off of the right lane.
You can't complain about that, because on Blue Hill Ave we're going to go down to 2 to 1. So it's and that one's going to be used as a parking lot for Uber Eats drivers. So we're going to go down to a 0. I don't have a dedicated turn-in lane for my coming out of Home Depot. Figure out how to merge into traffic like that. But like I have less sympathy for the mergers in Lynn than I do the completely blocked lanes on Blue Hill Ave.
Yes.
Well, I could be optimistic and say that if it's going from 2 travel lanes to 1, can you actually block it? Because I mean, you'll have people getting out of
you'd
their
be
cars
amazed.
with baseball bats.
Now, on the bright side, to solve your problem in Lynn, all we have to do is put up AI cameras that will ticket you if you don't know how to merge, and we'll just solve everything with tickets. Is the solution. All right, what else do we need to clear up here
I was just gonna say, how about I pull in the subcommittee notes, really more so that WIG can see what was going on, and to put it into public record, I'll just let people read. I don't think I need to call anything out that you can't just already read.
Well, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Well, Len and Craig, was there anything that you recall that is worth calling out, either for the public record or to engage WIG? I mean, we don't have to, but feel free.
No, I just want I just want WIG to know that another PCC is back in service. So that's
Yes.
is the 3228 is out there, or 3238 is out there. So that's the most important thing. You don't have to
Well,
read
that's
any of the other
good.
notes. Yeah.
That sounds really good. I appreciate your lifetime of work on this project. I have to say I've been a little distracted. I store a lot of stuff on flash drives because I figure if somebody's going to steal something, it's going to be my laptop. But yesterday, a flash drive slipped through a hole in my pocket I didn't know about, and I have no idea where it is.
Oh,
Oh
sorry.
no.
Oh,
But well, that's okay.
yeah.
You know, hopefully I'll be smarter when I when I rethink all that stuff. But I discovered that the computer outsmarted me by keeping some stuff in storage, even though it claims to have no not be storing anything. So like my calendar and a couple other key things were there. But anyway,
Copy flash drives, on a regular basis.
no, the flash drives are so big now, honestly. I mean, that's part of the issue, right? You can store so much stuff on a flash drive. It's just stunning nowadays.
I thought you said
And
slip through your pocket, through a hole in your pocket, so it can't be that big.
oh
Oh, he
no,
means capacity, I think.
Yeah, just
yeah,
mean, but I'm just saying, like, well, copy it, duplicate it, so it's not.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
no, you're exactly right. I
yeah,
just wasn't disciplined enough to,
yeah.
you know, do that every day.
Well, every
Yeah,
week,
no, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
yeah.
Yep.
I'm just,
I try
I
to
guess
follow
I'm
the
always
rule. If I
so far
buy one, I
behind.
buy 2.
I'm so far behind on the millions of things I want to do. I tend to have
Right.
more
I know,
lax
easier said than
discipline than
done.
I should.
I get it.
That
Easier said than done. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
think very sorry,
go ahead.
just a very quick thing. Um, we can ask Miles more in the next subcommittee, well, combined subcommittee if Miles does join us in November or December. But Miles successfully completed with some colleagues a border to border Mexico to Canada trip using only local public transit. And next time we have Miles in the in the meeting, you might want to ask him for some of the details because it's quite astounding. So
I bet.
very quickly, does anyone does anyone want me to pull up any of the slides from the most recent GM presentation
Yeah.
or
So on the GM's presentation, I
yeah.
thought the in-house bus overhauls was good.
Yes,
And
that's exactly what I
so
was thinking.
yeah, I'm glad to see more of that.
Pull that down right
And
here.
it's been something I've been wondering, like, why we don't do. And I mean, I figured the argument was always going to be we can do it so much less expensively outside because they don't have to like hire the people to do it. But they've made all the arguments that I thought would be the effective arguments for doing it, in house. So I'm
Hmm.
thrilled to see that. Yeah, I'm just thrilled to see that. And so
I
yeah.
felt
Um,
like you were going to say that.
yeah. Um, uh, and then the other thing is on the Capitol, they're starting the new CIP process. or they're getting ready to start it. I mean, and so the
Yeah.
big news in that is that we have so many big projects now that we're not going to really have money, for
Yeah.
any new things.
Right.
So they're asking people, like, when you think about requests, just make those requests for things that will help to reduce the costs of the projects that are ongoing, or able to absorb the cost increases
Yeah.
to tariffs, and general inflation. And so I think some small things will be included, but probably
Yeah.
nothing big. And then the last thing is, well, there are two things. It was on the long range planning. So one is that they are getting ready to start the new PMT. Although as I was looking in it, it seemed like they may have had a meeting or something. I'm a little bit confused. But anyway, that process is just starting. If it has started, it's just starting, and
Mm-hmm.
it's probably a
Yes.
process that will last at least 6 months. Probably the better part of a year, and that's when we can start, really doing the vision thing. Now, as we remember, Scott Hamway, the last time was like, well, we can have these visions, but if we can't implement them, they're not doing us much good. So he was
Yep.
really much more along the lines of let's try to have in the current PMT things that we can accomplish. So I think you can do both. So I
Yeah.
think you can have the vision,
Yep.
and you can have things that you can implement, and try to have a roadway from the vision, even if it's not
Yep.
something that is currently in process. Just say, like,
Yeah.
well, if we really want to do this, this is what we need to do.
Yep.
We can't do it. We don't think we're going to do it, but here's what we could do if we were going to do it.
Yep.
And then, you know what, if the T doesn't want to do that, then maybe we can do that in parallel to what the T is doing, as allies. And the other thing, which is really exciting to me, is the what do they call it? The modality interconnection.
Yep. I got it up on the screen. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. I guess I heard a some rumblings about it, but now it's good to see it, like, there.
Oh
You
yeah. Yeah. I
and
am really happy to see that the micro transit on demand response is part of it.
yeah,
I was worried
yeah,
that would be, well, I don't want to say overlooked. I wasn't worried to be overlooked, but I I didn't think it was going to be featured. Well, I mean, at least in this slide,
right,
equal weight. I mean,
yeah,
that could just be the way the graphic is laid out, but still, it's right
right,
there, right?
right,
Demand response, bam.
yeah. And Sandy Johnson's a part of that. So Sandy Johnson's a
Yep,
friend of the Rock. So I think we could ask Sandy to come and talk to us about
Yep.
that and any other aspects of the strategic transit, of strategic planning,
right.
transit planning. So the question is, do we ask him for November, or do we wait and ask him for January, February? I'm inclined, to wait, for the beginning of the year, but.
I I would love to just ask him and let him choose.
Okay, we'll ask him, let him choose.
Yeah, because I mean,
Okay,
he's joined us on a number of prior Rock meetings. He knows our
sure,
format. He knows us.
sure.
We can, I mean, if you want to invite him and say, hey, we're doing a combined meeting. People might be on vacation. It might only be a few people compared to, well, a few
Compared
people
to when
for
we on
this
vacation,
meeting.
there's just a few people.
Yeah. But I mean,
because we're that big, but it's informal and fun. Go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. So I encourage you to invite him, or I can, and just lay it out and let him choose.
Well, if I tell you what, I will ask you to invite him, and I'll do the agenda based on what happens. How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay, good,
Yep. But
great.
again, the goal being talking with him about this strategic planning, where we are now, what's next,
Yeah,
overview,
yeah,
Q&A.
and with the focus on the mobility integration plan.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
because they developed that, and so I really want to read it, because I haven't really seen it presented anywhere. Have you?
Hmm. No, I don't.
Uh,
I think I have even seen PMT mentioned in quite a while.
no, not
Maybe
PMT.
since the last.
The mobility integration plan. Have you
Oh,
seen
oh,
that
oh, right. I
presented
got you.
anywhere?
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, I think maybe. Yeah. So I mean, I
This one.
see.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think this is the slide that shows it the best.
yeah, but I haven't read the plan. I haven't seen the plan presented. I could have missed it, but I just haven't seen it. So I like to go through the plan, and then maybe have a conversation with him about that, as a subset of the strategic transportation plan. Yeah.
Sure thing.
But one thing I'd like to throw out, just in
Please.
case anyone has interest, is the Logan EDR is on the street. So, every few years, Logan Airport does a larger report than other years. And that they probably intersect more with surface transportation than any non-surface transportation entity. So, that can be interesting. Not that you guys probably have time, but just to mention it.
I know you've mentioned it before, and I just can't keep what the acronym is in my head. EDR
Environmental data report.
Environmental data report.
I think that's what it is. I mean, in my head, that's what it is.
It's a huge document.
Oh, huge, like 100 pages or like 500 pages?
Like 500.
Oh, bigger.
Oh.
Yeah.
They're usually bigger.
Hey, team, I just jump in. I do need to drop off, but
Okay.
thanks
No
for
problem.
putting up with my crankiness today. We'll talk
Oh,
soon.
no problem,
Fine.
Craig.
You're great, Craig. Thank you very much. See you next time.
I guess it was less cranky and more just skeptical. I'm beat down.
Yeah.
All right.
Say hi.
Bye.
Say hi to the
change. We
Grinch.
love you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think I only had one other thing, and for the life of me,
excuse me.
Can't find it now. Anything else from you gents? We've only got about 12 minutes left anyway.
Well, this is even further afield, but I'll mention it anyway. In environmental issues, of course, air pollution is the biggest deal for most people, but noise is an issue, especially with aviation. But so the Massport CAC, which is the other group that I have been on for about 20 years, along with this one, has a lot more resources than we do, and has monitors that we own and deploy. And Massport, of course, has a pretty significant monitor network as well. And what I just wanted to throw out for background is that there are both monitors available at 1/3 the cost of the normal federal regulatory monitors, which are better than those federal monitors. And there are also some much smaller monitors, which seem to be as good as those ones that cost 1/3 as much, but are even cheaper than those by quite a bit. So it's a pretty big deal. The stratification in the air pollution world, which is where most environmental focus in modern economies is on air pollution, and in some poorer economies where they burn everything, both cooking indoors and also the fields outdoors, it's also a big issue. So that world is an interesting inflection point. Like those really cheap monitors do really well with forest fires that cross half a continent. They're pretty much worthless for other things, but they're really good for feeding air now when there's some really big regional or national events. But these new monitors they're really interesting because it's a huge issue. People have no idea what the health effects are of things like Logan Airport or living next to a highway. They're extraordinary compared to regional pollution, which is largely controlled at this point.
Right. Yep. I was just talking with somebody at work about that within the last week or two. I think this is something that is worth pulling up, but I think Len, oh, I don't know if you just had to drop off for a moment.
I'm still here. What's up?
Okay. Did you see this from the board?
Yeah, I just commented on it.
Oh, this is the one that you were. Oh, I had the wrong slide up. Okay.
Well, we commented on both of them, so I commented on this one first, and so
Oh, okay.
the new approach to the CIP, that's what I talk about first,
I
and
apologize.
then I talked
I thought
about
you were referring to. Okay.
no problem.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
No. Well,
You just
you're
put.
often multitasking, you know. So,
Yeah.
so,
And
so,
and
so
this
No, I think it just I didn't grok it right. It was just I heard
right,
everything you said and I just didn't connect it to this because it does say CIP clearly, but that's just
right. Well, that tends to
I had a
be
brain fart.
an effective multitasking. So you hear everything, but you don't like really hear it, you know. So you hear the words, but you don't integrate it in because your brain is like doing other things.
Yeah. I'm
Uh,
sorry, what was that?
yeah,
and
you
Just
hear.
kidding. That was a
No,
joke.
no, no,
That
no,
one was
no.
a joke.
I know,
That
but
one was a
I'm just
joke.
saying, So, but
and
I'm used to it. You're not the only one. I mean, I get it a lot, and so it's like, okay, fine, I'll
Yep.
repeat.
No
Go ahead.
problem.
and
Um,
and how do you guys look at the federal situation intersecting with these issues that we wrestle with that may be treated extraordinarily arbitrarily?
I'm trying to keep myself from being extremely pessimistic about the
No, that's
federal
fine.
situation.
That's fine, but it's a little bit of an absurd situation. I don't mean that despondently.
Mhm.
I guess I've probably told you before this. I was born in 1950, so full experience in the late 1960s. This is certainly the most dysfunctional period in
Yep.
my life since the late 1960s.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So you, you hope for the best, but
Yeah.
you be really
Well,
prepared.
we're
You be really
referring.
prepared for the worst, and
Yes.
so you're like, so you kind of do a scenario where you're not going to get any money, and then see, well, what can we do, or what do we stop doing, so
Yeah, and I think I mean what it brings out in me is gratefulness for the variety of people and states, and that variety, although it gets us in trouble on some occasions, it also brings us solutions. We're just so fortunate to have the variety of thinkers and skill sets and characters, and so that's what I'm hoping for anyway.
yeah. Well, I'm not saying what I really think because we recorded,
Yeah,
and it's
that's
got to be on
okay.
YouTube.
That's
That's
So
okay.
yeah,
fine.
uh, uh, uh,
I just call out the month of August, the light rail rates of fatalities, safety events, collisions all fell below the target level. And that's to be commended.
yeah.
And someone is working on the escalator at the Orange Line stop at Assembly Square after I don't know how long,
Hmm.
which is terrific. Terrific to see someone working on that.
Well, it was probably a parts issue.
Yeah, it
Uh,
might have been Len. It
yeah,
it was open. The the gears and machinery were open to view for a year or two with not a single person working an hour.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah. It's probably a parts issue. Yeah,
Yeah,
uh,
it could be. And
right,
and there is a working elevator for people who need it, and it's not that much stairs, so
right.
it's okay.
what
Yeah,
station was that?
Assembly.
yeah.
Oh,
Well then,
so have
go
they
ahead.
renamed the station temporarily to disassembly while that it's all
No,
taken apart? No,
no.
no. Okay.
There's a lot where, this is an old system.
Yep.
Yeah.
you know.
If it's not a big escalator, then it may have been also a priority thing, but I suspect it was a parts thing. Yeah,
It's a one flight, and it's not
yeah.
it's not one of the longer one flights, but it's not tiny.
Right.
Yeah, you're probably right. The one thing that would be a touch surprising is that it's so new. You would expect there to be parts, but it's okay. It's not that big a deal. You know, it's a great station. It's really helpful, especially to the people who work there, who come from a lot of different places. And
Well, speaking of parts, though, one of the things I did want to comment on was about the warehouse. I mean, so there was a presentation about the warehouse, I mean, how effective it is, I mean, and how the inventory is accurate. I guess it went from a 61% accuracy back being was it in the 90s or maybe the early
wow,
noughties? I mean, but now it's like being it's in the 98% range of accuracy.
wow,
And there's a contract that they voted on for like $32 million. For whatever company is going to maintain the warehouse. And I was thinking, we isn't that something also that could be done in-house? It just seems like maintaining your inventory. Should be a skill set, me, for something the size of the T, that is done in house. And so once again, I argue against myself by saying, well, the reason we're doing this is because it is so big, that you need a entity with special skills and employees that can do it. But at the same time, if it is that big, it seems like it'd be worth it for us to hire people who are MBTA employees, to do it. Uh, but a lot of times, it's a way to keep the head count down. If you hire it from outside, and it's just what is your risk though if that outside entity either goes away for whatever reason, or the next time it's time for you to hire renew the contract. The prices are significantly different. So I was just kind of wondering, like, what is the difference between it, and now like doing the bus, um, rehab in-house, or is it something that they're thinking
yeah,
about? It's just a matter of time, because I think before they had the outside vendor, it was all in-house, and it was chaotic. But that's not because it's inherently
right.
chaotic to do it in-house. It's just that they didn't have the management, really, for lack of a better word, to effectively, well, do inventory management. But that's really a management thing. It's not really being uh, uh, inherent problem with doing inventory in house. It's not like you have to have someone from outside do your inventory. So
Yeah.
Well, Len, what about the older parts of the system, though? I mean, when as you're talking, I'm thinking maybe hybrid would work, where the bulk stuff that is common across many different systems, maybe that's more efficient to have a larger partner, but there's also some stuff that probably has to be handmade in our system. I mean, just from years ago when we visited some of those places where they fix things up, you know,
it,
they had some unique stuff they had to make.
inventory is all about tracking. That's all inventory is tracking. And all you need is a workflow. You need to do tracking. And yes, you can say all you need is a workflow, but when you have a workflow, you need someone that's going to enforce that workflow. And that's where management comes into place. So it's like whatever unit of time, you need to make sure this task is done, to make sure that your inventory is up to date. That's all it is. And so I don't know why you need outside experts to do tracking, of what you have, what you
Well,
order, what you bring in. That's all it is.
yeah, well, I think probably there may be some bulk efficiencies, but I think that the inside knowledge would be helpful. So, I
Yeah.
mean, to that, I think the trickier stuff is the stuff that's a little bit more unique, and that would be better in the hands of insiders anyway.
Yeah, it's just tracking, and so and yeah, you need a database to do your tracking, but it does we the T can easily, if you don't already have people who can set up a database. They can hire that, and then that person does other database work for the T. And so uh, yeah, yeah. So that's my thinking on that. But at the same time, I mean, I'm sure someone could give me an argument for why they're doing it. I mean, as I'm sure they could have given me an argument for why they did the bus overhaul. I mean, with 30 parties. I mean, and hopefully at some point, I will agree. Not that it's necessarily I agree. Or they'll agree with the thinking that I have, and then next thing we know, like in the next 5 years, whenever this contract expires, they'll be like, you know what, we're gonna do this in house. Yeah. Um,
Interesting.
because it is $32 million. I mean, and I'm not saying that they can do it cheaper, in house. But I guess what I'm saying is like if you're gonna spend $32 million, I mean, I think it'd be good, if it went to T employees, and that we, use that develop that expertise in house. I mean, and then maybe they could do other things. I mean, at the T with the expertise that they have, or fill in other gaps when they materialize at the T, so that if the T has to hire someone with that skill, they can get it from the people who are doing the inventory because they already are part of the T. Anyways, I'm rambling at this point, so I've made my point.
That's okay. Mind if I throw out one last quick thing? It's actually a Somerville specific thing, um, relative to or related to assembly. And
Sure.
very quick thing. Um, I I would imagine that we're all going to be optimistic that the new pedestrian bike bridge over the Mystic, basically between the casino and Assembly Orange Line station, is going to be a huge success and maybe even drive more traffic to the Orange Line and off of uh, uh, private vehicles to get to and from the casino. Fingers crossed, maybe not, but it should
Well,
help.
they have a huge staff, and the
Okay.
staff aren't all wealthy. And the
Oh,
big
right,
the
right.
big thing about this is that they went from 12 feet, which was way too pinched,
Yes.
to 18. The
Yep.
structure, I don't think the weight they have to hold up is much different.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you could have a baby carriage, or you could have, some 22-year-olds with those
Yep.
electrified scooters going, and
Exactly.
they don't all have to bang into each other. You
Right.
could have a few benches where someone with little kids, a mother could sit for
Yeah.
a couple minutes. So,
But here's the thing that I wanted to ask really quick because
yeah,
you might have personal experience on it. Um, if I'm not mistaken, the only way to get from the east side, the river side of the tracks to the other side is underneath at this, what does it say? Noonan
yeah. Well, you
Place,
you
right?
are you are a little bit mistaken. So I
Oh,
asked them to put a bump out in the T station, just short of the tap in on the Park and Riverside, so that
okay.
when they were, so there is, in connection with this bridge, there is a pathway to that bump out, and people can go right up into the station
Oh, no
because of
kidding.
that.
So that's planned.
I planned that.
Oh my God, thank you.
You
Oh
see
my
that little
God.
bump out there? Well,
On
well,
the north
y-
side of the
right in
station?
the middle
Yeah. Oh, in the middle.
of your frame. No, in the middle
Yeah.
of the frame you had.
Oh, this.
Yeah,
You mean this
that
little?
that little bump out
Oh my
is
God.
is between the T personnel selling tickets or watching for security on the right of that,
Yeah.
and the tap in to go down the escalator or the stairs to the service.
Oh my
That's
God.
why I asked for that bump out to be put there.
Oh my God. That's
If
brilliant.
you don't do that, it's going to cost them another $40 million to redesign and rebuild this thing.
Holy cow. That's genius. Oh my God. Well, that answers exactly what was my concern because I was looking at this whole area and saying, how the heck
Yeah,
are people going to
that's
get over the
that's why
footbridge
I that's why I
without going?
asked them to
Oh,
do that.
Wig,
Cool.
you just made my week.
There you go.
I'm getting a little weepy, actually, so we should call it.
All right.
Oh my God. That's genius. Thank you, Wig.
Oh no, that's a I come up with good ideas once every 10 years. You guys come up with 10 a day.
I'm going to sing your praises about that for a long
No,
time.
no, don't do
That's what
that.
happens.
I'm in enough trouble already.
All right, all right, all right. Well, seriously, that answers the question that I had for
Good.
Well, you're the
oh,
first person to ask that.
oh my God.
Great.
Well, I am
Excellent.
absolutely beside myself with elation over that because
Yeah.
I was
I'll
looking at
just
the big round going underneath the track. It's like
Right.
several hundred yards up
Yeah.
and around with thank you.
well, on that note,
Yeah, I can't
so
top that.
yeah.
Nobody currently watching the stream, no comments on YouTube. So I think we
All
can
right.
adjourn.
Adjourn. See you second
By the
Wednesday.
way,
Yeah.
there is a large contribution from the developers to that station. I mean, relatively to what developers normally want to give.
Oh,
Good.
They
that's
gave
Good.
10 million to that, which
That's
wow.
when it was built was a significant piece.
yeah.
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 Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I mean, that whole
Thank
Assembly
you.
Square area is very impressive. So yeah, it's like a
Yeah,
little
what
sit.
I look at, Len, is the people working there and the variety and hopes for their future.
Yeah. 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 It's
Fantastic.
just a stone's throw away now. So I
Oh,
love it. Well, well, I guess quick question. I mean, there are a lot of helicopters around in this area. I mean, is that they're just monitoring the 93? Is that the deal? I mean,
Yes, you
it,
usually it is. Occasionally there are security issues, but yeah, there's tons of helicopters around Somerville and Cambridge, rush
yeah.
hours normally.
Yeah. But I sometimes hear them in like late at night, like around 11 o'clock or something, almost a regular pattern where it seems like something's booking into to Logan,
Yeah,
yeah,
it could be.
yeah. Oh yeah, all right,
geez.
so
I just
The other thing
go
to
ahead.
remember is um, you know, there's almost as many flights at Hanscom as there are at Logan. They're just smaller planes, and there's a lot of medevac, including there's a lot of helicopters that are medevac, and those are going to be all hours because all the
Oh,
big hospitals have rooftop heliports.
that's true. I might be hearing the ones going into to MGH. Yeah,
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 and they have some in Longwood too, but yeah, MGH gets
yeah,
helicopter patients every day that are
yeah. Oh,
emergencies.
oh
right.
yeah, several times a day.
Yeah.
So yeah. No, that's true. I hadn't thought about that. That's probably what I'm hearing a lot. All right, cool. All
One,
right.
just because I pulled it up, it's actually on the article where I was reading about it. There it is. It's a rendering 2021, but look at that. Hooked right up from the
There you
park
go.
side into the
That's
station.
just a bookmark. It could be something smaller.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be.
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
In Somerville, we like people who are practical. You
Yep.
know,
That's phenomenal. Oh
Well,
my God.
well,
All right.
just want to say, well,
Yep.
visionary. I won't say a visionary, but someone who likes to think big. I mean, has now moved into Somerville. He was always like thinking like 50 in 100 years in advance. So just saying, you could always tell me go back to Arlington with your big dreams, and I'll say, well, who are you to tell me
Len, wait
that?
till you go to the Prospect Hill events. That was George Washington. You know, the first flag. Spying on those
Wow.
those nasty British.
yeah, yeah. All right.
That's rich.
All right. Well, thank you guys.
Yep. Thank
Thank
you.
you.